Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill. Thanks for joining us today on this beautiful spring morning. We have a great show planned for you. First of all, in homeschool news, we're going to remind you of some of the details for our children's and teens program for the Thrive Conference coming up at the end of May. Then we have a homeschool conversation with Vicki Bentley. She's an educational consultant with HSLDA, and she's going to be one of our featured speakers at the conference. We're also going to have Homeschool Helps with Amanda, and she's going to talk about this important topic, homeschooling when life is hard. So stick around for that. For homeschool news, just want to remind you about the children's program. If you're registered for the conference, you need to realize that if you want to be in the children's program, it's a separate registration. So you can go to nche.com/thrive/children's-program and find out more about that. We'll have a link in the show notes for you. This is by Giant Cow. It's a ministry for kids. It's really wonderful. You want to check that out. Last week, we talked about the activities and workshops we have specifically for teens, but we didn't tell you some of the workshop titles. I'd like to do that because I think it will really pique your interest. Steve Noble is our primary teen track speaker this year, but we have a lot of other workshops that are helpful as well. The ones that Steve is going to talk about include politics, nasty but necessary, living out your faith in a culture that sometimes hates you, identity, where are you rooted? Dealing with doubt. I hated history too. A couple other titles are, is capitalism moral? Countering socialist arguments. Is God really good? Violence in the scriptures and church history. Creation and evolution, where we stand today, and many more. So if this sounds interesting to you, your teens are going to love it. They can go to the teen activities and go to these workshops and really be encouraging and inspiring to them. Now we're going to go to Homeschool Conversations. I had a wonderful conversation with Vicki Bentley, who again is going to be one of our featured speakers at the conference. Again, that's coming up at the end of May 23rd to the 25th. You can register by going to nche.com/thrive and find out all about it. Vicki is the mother of 8 daughters, foster mom of over 50, grandma to 23 grandbabies, and great-grandma to 10 so far. Vicki has homeschooled 17 children alongside her husband, Jim, and has been a support group leader since 1991. She can be found at everydayhomemaking.com and is the author of many books, including My Homeschool Planner, Everyday Cooking, The Everyday Family Chore System, and more. She's currently, as I said, one of the educational consultants for HSLDA. We had a wonderful conversation. This time in particular, I'm going to show you the first part of it. This is about homemaking, about organizing, about chores, about having an orderly home, which really supports a great home education and is included in life, home education life. So check this out. Well, Vicki, we're so glad you could take some time and talk with us today, and we are really looking forward to having you at the conference coming up soon.
I'm excited about it.
Now, you've been helping homeschool families for quite a while, haven't you?
Yes, I think a little over 30 years. So
oh, wow.
It's been a while,
So that means you love
blessed.
it?
Oh, I love what I do, it's a huge blessing to be able to serve the homeschooling community. So.
And I'll ask this, it might lead us into some of your workshops, but it might not, because I would like us to take a minute and look at some of the things that you're planning on talking about.
Sure.
At the conference. And that is, what is one of the themes that just never quits? One of the questions that's just like always there for parents.
I think I'm going to be doing 7 workshops at NCHE, and you'll see a theme in some of my workshops seems to be almost homemaking related or family related versus the nuts and bolts of homeschooling, which we also touch on. But that's really important to me because a lot of especially moms that I talk to, feel a little overwhelmed with trying to homeschool and home make. They're trying to be mom and wear a teacher hat, if you want to call it that, at the same time.
Hmm.
And so they feel like they get up in the morning, they've got the kids ready, their kids are eating breakfast, they're brushing their teeth, doing whatever they're doing, and the house is kind of not how they want it to be. There's things they would love to do to get the house a little bit more in order, but my goodness, it's a homeschool day. We've got to start our math, and we've got to start our language arts, and we've got to get into science, and we've got to get into social studies. And meanwhile, mom's panicked over what the baby's eating off of the floor from breakfast, and all of these things are going on. So one of the things that I love to encourage moms especially in is that it's okay to take a little bit of time first thing in the morning, if you need to get your house a little bit in order. When your kids are brushing their teeth, it's okay for you to be clearing the breakfast dishes, or they could be doing their morning chores. I like to say, we're going to talk about this in getting kids to help at home, but doing chores is what I call home management training. And home management training is part of home ec, and home ec is part of homeschooling. So just look at it as you've spent 20 minutes doing home ec in the morning instead of starting just with your math. So you don't have to feel that you throw
Hmm.
homeschooling to the wind because you stopped for 20 minutes to sweep the floor and tidy the table and make beds, whatever it might need to get done that's critical to you.
Yeah.
So because you'll notice that a lot of the workshops are heavy on getting your home in order, because I find that for most families, if your house isn't running somewhat smoothly, your homeschooling may not be either,
Hmm.
because it kind of goes on the back burner. Mom's trying to uh, do homeschooling. She's doing math and language arts. And while she's doing that, the laundry is up to here, and dad's eating frosted flakes for the fourth night in a row from a bowl he washed, himself or whatever. And mom's panicked and she feels like something has to give. And so in many families, that'll be, I can't keep homeschooling because I can't stay on top of everything. So if I can help mom feel more that like she's got a handle on her day, if we can get some systems into place that work for her family's needs, then she has hope for another day of math and language and social studies and science. So
Well, I want to go back to the getting kids to help at home. That's
mhm,
the title
mhm,
of one of your workshops. And then the subtitle is Training in Diligence and Thoroughness. And what I really love about what you're saying is how we need to expand our understanding of education or of what we're doing, because we think in such academic terms. But really, home education is much more than school, right?
right.
We're preparing our kids for life.
Yes.
We want them to be able to do stuff. And if I can just share, this is hilarious. Right before I came on here, I got a text from my daughter who's
Uh-huh,
babysitting.
uh-huh.
And she said, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" She said, "I just fixed a toilet. I knew how to turn the water off before it overflowed, and I was able to unclog it and fix everything." She said, "You should be proud."
That's right. That's everyday
it's
life.
it's
And
so simple, you know?
well, and I want our homeschooling families to realize you're a family first. Yes, you've made an education choice for your kids, but that education choice is part of your lifestyle choice. A lot of times people pick homeschooling. They say, "Oh, I'm going to homeschool. That's my education choice." It's a lifestyle choice. Regardless of the method of education you choose, you've chosen a lifestyle. And in homeschooling, it's a lifestyle of learning versus just having to be school at home. I'm not saying that we aren't going to obviously expect a good education for our children, and prepare for that and help that to happen. But in scripture, it tells us to add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. But you can't add to faith if you don't start with faith. So faith is the foundation. And to that, we're adding virtue, which you and I would probably think of as character. And isn't it a whole lot easier to teach a diligent, cheerful, obedient child? So we work on some character. And then to that, it says we add knowledge. So to faith, we're adding virtue, and to that, we're adding knowledge. So, yes, knowledge is important, but it's not necessarily number one. And in our in our society, our model for education is based on the Greek model of education, which is very knowledge based. But the Hebrew model of education is very relationship based.
Mm.
And so I would love for families to feel that they're not just teaching their children, they're building their relationships within their families while they're educating their child for whatever they're called to do in life.
And not only is the knowledge not number one necessarily, but the functional thing that you've pointed out is chaos is not a great context for learning. But to have some peace and some order
Yes.
really makes learning a lot better.
Now, I don't want anybody to leave and say, Vicki Bentley said education is not important. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, let's not work so hard on getting our kids into Harvard that we've missed heaven. So I think sometimes we're teaching to the wrong test. So
let's just for a minute get a little sneak peek on the getting kids to help at home.
Sure.
What kinds of ideas or tips would you be mentioning there?
One of the first things we talk about is how do we determine what's important to include in if you want to call it a chore system. What do we include? Because there are so many tasks that we do in a day. How do we decide what we're going to put on a chore rotation? So we talk a little bit about that. And then one of the most important things for me to realize, I'm not sure how many people may know my background, but my husband and I were foster parents. We have 8 daughters, 23 grandkids, 11 great grandkids at this point, but we also fostered almost 50 kids. And so we had to have a system where kids could just come into our home and kind of plug in. So they felt like they were part of the family. So what I discovered after trying a bunch of different chore charts was it wasn't that the kids didn't know they were supposed to empty the dishwasher or sweep the stairs or whatever it was, but their idea of sweeping the stairs and my idea of sweeping the stairs didn't match up. And that's where we butt heads. And so I developed for our family what we call the how to do it card system. And I developed some how to do it cards. I'm a very concrete sequential learner. And so I was able to write down step by step exactly what needed to happen. So I'm not the bad guy anymore. The card is. So there's a job card that tells them exactly what's there. And I use that as a training tool. So I like parents to know that your children are not, you cannot hand your kids a card that says, this is how you do this and expect life to be rosy and they're going to do this. There's training involved. And that's why it's, training your child in diligence and thoroughness. It's not an overnight process. But if you don't start now, you're not going to get anywhere. Sometimes I'll have moms say, well, this is great because when you started this, you had variety of ages of children. But I have, say, 5 children under the age of 5. If I implement a chore system of some sort, I'm still going to have to do all of the jobs because they're all little. And I say, that's true. You will. But you'll be training them, you'll be apprenticing them as you go along. If you don't implement something like this, you're still going to have to do all of the work, but you're not apprenticing your children in what this looks like as they get older.
And you'll be frustrated while you're doing the work and they're sitting on the couch complaining about something.
And when they're younger, especially when they're younger, they love to help. Unfortunately, that's the age at which they aren't quite as helpful because they're still learning how to do all of the things.
Yeah.
But we talk a little bit about capitalizing on that eagerness that they have to be helpful and how to have age appropriate and developmentally appropriate expectations of our children while we're helping them to help at home.
Welcome to Homeschool Helps with Amanda. I'm Amanda Wayers, Homeschool Helps Director with NCHE. So today we are going to tackle the topic of homeschooling during hard times. So I think a lot of us, myself included, have sort of an idealistic view of homeschooling and think, oh, it's always going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's always going to be good times. And if something hard comes along, then it must be homeschooling's fault. And therefore, we should just put the kids in school to make things better. But I hope in this video to encourage you that that is not always or even often the best choice. And truthfully, it will not often or hardly ever will it fix the hard. There are so many ways to approach difficult times and to still be able to thrive in your homeschool situation, even if times are awful and tragic and hard and whatever. There are so many ways to be creative, to be flexible. So that's what I'm going to hopefully encourage you with today, with a few stories just from my own homeschooling journey. I really could probably go on and on for hours about different difficult situations and how I handled them, or how people I know tackled those difficult situations in their homeschooling journey. So let's talk first about, what do you do? How do you homeschool when the budget is not as expensive as you would like it to be, right? What do you do when there is literally no budget? I've been there. There are so many ways, so many things to do. First off, I encourage you, utilize your library. The library has so many resources. Some libraries even have curriculum that you can borrow for free. They have tons of online resources. Of course, just the literature that you can get from the library. There's so many options. For several years, I scrounged up enough money and went to used curriculum sales and got things off the free table. A lot of times there'll be a table that people just want to not bring things home, so they give them away. That's an option. Look at that always. And then, so if I could get maybe a teacher's manual for really inexpensive at that used curriculum sale or on that free table, then I could get all the books to go with it from my local library. So that's an option. Another option is really trading with somebody. You can just ask. A lot of times people around you may have resources that they would love to share with you. And is it possible to homeschool successfully without paying for the big expensive curriculum or the outside classes or whatever those extracurricular things may be? Of course it is. Of course it is. And I would say to you that those years when I had to be super intentional and super creative with how we approached our homeschooling, those were maybe some of our sweetest years. And maybe because I was sort of forced to be so intentional and so creative. We did field trips to places that were free and things like that. There's just a lot of resources out there. You just maybe need to get creative, be flexible, and don't be afraid to ask, because there are so many people around you that you may not even know that would love to help, to share. So that's the first difficult situation. Another one would be, what if someone is either you yourself, someone in your family, extended family? What if you're dealing with sickness or injury or death or chronic illness, those kinds of things? What do you do then? How do you homeschool when you're faced with that kind of situation? Well, you keep going. You keep going. It's entirely possible. And I would say my best advice in that situation is to have your pillars that are kind of non-negotiables and be willing to be flexible as you need to. For example, years ago, my mother broke her leg really badly and needed kind of round the clock care. She needed someone with her. Fortunately, my sister and I both homeschool and we both live locally. So we were able to be flexible in our own schedules and kind of trade off and be with Mama in that situation and help her. And it was such a blessing. We packed up our books and we took them to Grandma's house, and the homeschooling did not stop. It looked a little different, sure, but it did not stop. And at the end of that time, it was really sweet, I think. We were able to look back and see, oh, this was such a blessing to be able to be flexible in our life, in our routine, to help someone who really needed help. If you personally are dealing with illness or ongoing some difficult situation, I have done another video about homeschooling while dealing with mental health issues, either in your own self or with your children, perhaps. I have dealt with both of those in my homeschooling journey. So I'm not going to go into that right now, but you can go look for that video. It's another Homeschool Helps with Amanda talking about homeschooling and mental health. That would really be helpful also. It's another hard time, but homeschooling can be a blessing and just a real help in that kind of situation as well. So there are so many different examples of hard times. It might not be financial, it might not be illness related or any of that, but I hope I can encourage you that with some creativity, with some flexibility, it absolutely can be possible to homeschool successfully and thrive even in those really hard times. So I really hope this helps today. As always, if you would like to contact me, maybe you have a particular situation that I can encourage you in, please reach out. You can always reach me at helps, HELPS, at nche.com. So I really hope this helps today.
We're so glad you joined us today. As usual, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us at the Homeschool Show at nche.com. Send us questions and feedback and suggestions. Anytime you rate or leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else, it'll help other people find it. And maybe there's some particular segments today, like homeschooling when life is hard or getting things in order that you know someone would be interested in. Well, send them this episode so that they can hear about it. You can find out more about the show at nche.com/the homeschool show. And until next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.